kind of mental commentary that you're talking about happens quite a lot in performances, doesn't it? I think what I like to try and work on with my students is, and I was saying this to somebody earlier, maybe Harry, is to create buzzwords in the mind to make sure we keep a focus. So our mental commentary doesn't get mixed up in the things that we don't want to be thinking about and the things that we definitely do want to be thinking about. The example we were using earlier was, this is actually a good thing throughout, is when we take a breath, I mean, if I said to you, talk to me about good breathing, you will be able to talk about that very easily. But to kind of summon that on the spot and make sure, guarantee that we're taking good breaths, sometimes during performance becomes more tricky than it should be. So I use 3 words: deep, relaxed, open. And I think those 3 create, it's a very simplistic way of looking at breathing, all right? But those 3 words create and guide us towards exactly what we should be doing while we're on stage. Deep, open, and relaxed. If I'm working with a student, we go towards a recital, the longer recitals, and I'm a little bit worried they'll be a little bit tight to start with, I put those 3 words at the top of their first piece in kind of bright pink writing, because that's you know, kind of very useful mental commentary for yourself, isn't it? Those words. That's good. You know, other words, space, time, things like that. Just making sure that the mental pathway that we're going through is a good one during our performance. That's something I think that needs to be worked on, not just while we're performing, but thought about during our kind of preparation for performances. And the more natural that becomes, I guess the more experienced a performer you become, then obviously the more natural that kind of thing becomes. But while we're getting used to that, I think it's got to be a bit more kind of deliberately thought about, either through information that you write on the copy, or even what I encourage right before recitals is to sit down for good periods during the week without the instrument, just with the music and a sheet of paper, and just literally write down the mental pathway, going by piece. What do I want to be thinking right before I play my first note? What would be the most useful thing to think about? It's not going to be, crikey, it's hot in here, or I don't know, I didn't expect him to be in the audience, or something like that. It's going to be something a little bit more focused. What am I thinking about? You're doing an hour recital. What's going through your mind at 40 minutes in? Is it, you know what, I think I'm really tired, I'm starting to panic a little bit that I might not make it to the end of this recital. That's not useful, all right? Actually, what is, keep breathing, deep, relaxed, open. Keep coming back to those words, because if you keep breathing, of course, the stamina is always that. I always think, especially first breaths, actually, this works for almost any breathing point. Think about it as a transfer of energy. You know those things that executives have on their desks occupy their time. What, I don't know what they're called. Petrol.
Newton's cradle.
Oh, is it? Right, there you go. But it's a transfer of energy thing. Okay, so if we think about that, okay, and there's no element of kind of stutter as the energy is transferred from the breath into the breath out. You know, straight. Oh, does that make sense? So that's the picture that I have in my mind. It's very useful for me. It might be a little bit useful for you, but I mean, we come up with our own ideas, don't we? So, you know, don't snatch it first. Let's just go from the beginning one more time. Deep, relaxed, open. Take real care of this. I'm a big believer in doing the easy stuff as absolute best as we can. All right, whether that's Charles Colling flexibility. I don't know if you use Charles Colling here. Some of the trumpet players might. We haven't got. Maybe I've got any trumpet players here. Anyway, easy flexibility, whatever, or some simple scales or whatever, but just the absolute quality. Do you mind doing it one more time? And I know when you say it's easy, actually, sometimes these are some of the hardest things to do for the people because it's so fundamental. Good, so that's great. That's nice and smooth, nice intonation, good control of the sound. And we're doing that by really listening to ourselves, yeah? And then responding physically to what we're going to do. So I want to explain the first two phrases and essentially do that exactly that as well. So nice and relaxed, and use the airflow in a way where you blow over the top of the valve chimney, so that's not at all interrupting the legato line, all right? And listen to your long notes so they do exactly what you want them to do. So there's no accidental bulge or this, you know, any of those types of what's the word? Impurities, I suppose, that we don't necessarily want. So as much as a physical practice here, actually this is a little exercise in really listening to yourself. Okay? First two lines. So we've talked about a musical plan, and now we're talking about really using the ear to make sure we're creating the legato line exactly as we want it. Okay? That's a lot going on. I suppose we're starting to think about, you know, exactly how we're shaping phrases and thoughtful musicality rather than simply natural. And I know you weren't doing this, but I'm just kind of hoping that it sounds beautiful. Actually, you come up with interpretive ideas that really make it beautiful. Does that make sense? There's a nice little concept for the people that were in Washington. I don't know whether you went to my law class. I talked about something I called the circle of concentration, and it's adapted from a kind of philosophical, is a word for you, philosophical way of thinking that's called the circle of life. I'm not quite sure where this comes from. I think somebody told me it was a Zen principle once. Well, whatever, it doesn't matter. Circle of life where you're creating the correct balance. So if you've got family, you've got business, you've got finance, you've got home, you've got everything else you might do in life, okay? And you just, any one time during a week, during a year, during a day, you've got something that you're focused on. It might be family, it might be work. But we've got to remember everything else that's on that circle. So you're creating a constant balance in life, okay? That's the view. If we translate that onto brass line, and we have breathing, articulation, intonation, musicality, sound, phrasing, you know, you've got everything on that circle. And then at any one point, we might have a particular focus. We're going to do breathing in a minute. But what we must never do is drop any of the other things at the same time. So we've got that circle of concentration. Whether you're playing a warm-up exercise, simple long tones, whether you're doing a Bordoni, whether you're playing a concertina like this. I think we've always got to hold those within our practice and make sure we're doing as much as we can. So at the moment, even though we're worrying about other things, our focus at the top of the circle is breathing. Actually, let's try a little exercise. How's your single tonic? How's your single tonic? Okay? Semi-quavers. Just on a middle F. What we're going to do, 4 bars, semi-quavers, okay? But we're going to take one semi-quaver off, and then we're going to 4 bars. So. snatches the wrong word, but you know, that the quick breath, it practices just the quick breath. Okay? Why do we use vibrato? Two Euphonium players put their hands up. That tells a story, doesn't it? Hang on a minute. What do you play? Tuba. Excellent. What do you think?
To make it sound not boring.
Not boring. Follow that through. Why? Why is it?
It's a lot more interesting to listen to it when it's almost kind of ornamented like that than it is to just listen to a flat pitch. And it kind of gives it, allows you to give a single long note a sense of direction within a phrase.
It's a pretty good answer. Anybody want to? Yeah. What do you play? Sir?
I'm a tuba player. It makes it more vocal and more human, I guess.
So why do vocalists use it?
Protection. I honestly don't know.
I think we did. Well, right.
I think in some ways it expresses the letting go of those tense emotions.
Correct. So I think vibrato is a lot about tension and resolution, or tension and relaxation. Okay? So you can create tension in a note or a phrase by adding the vibrato, and then you can actually relax that tension within the phrase. And that music is like composers do that through use of harmony as well, and use of texture, use of balance, and all kinds of things. Music is a lot about tension and resolution, and vibrato can help us add. We called it interest. To add interest, but to add that tension in the right kind of places. Or actually, you could start something very intense, and then you can make it relax as well. It's supposed to be an artistic thing. Anyway, that's something that's worth. Of course, the problem with talking about vibrato like this and trying to be prescriptive with it is it becomes unnatural, and we want vibrato to be a natural part of your playing. And so we're playing around with it now. Do you record yourself in your practice? Yeah. So, but do try and mix it up. The young lady there suggested it wasn't enough. Go completely over the top. Something I was telling, it might have been Joel earlier on, the line of vulgarity. Was that you? Yes, okay. I went to a masterclass by Canadian Brass 5-6 years ago. The first trumpet player, I can't remember who it was at the time, was talking about what he called the line of vulgarity. And so basically pushing the musicianship to its limits. Too much vibrato, too much articulation, too fast, too slow, too much dynamic, too much diminuendo, too much of whatever. Because very often as musicians we underplay things. And we kind of push it as far as we think it might be appropriate. But of course, if we never ever go too far, this is kind of almost overly logical, but if you ever go too far, you never really know how far is enough. So, does that make sense? Have I explained that right? Yes, okay. So, really push it to its boundaries, and get a real wobble on, and record it, and think, whoa, that's too much. And then of course you can drag it back, and you see, okay, it's good, but a little bit, etc. Well, actually, you go both sides. You wouldn't have done it, you've overdone it. You find where you are with your appropriate line.
What is your favorite piece of music and why?
Ooh. Do you know what? It changes all of this. Is not compact, but it changes all of the time depending on the kind of things I'm working on. Because I think, whatever you are working on, whether it be a band piece or whether it be solo repertoire, you've got to get inside it. You've got to get passionate about it. And if you approach even something, sometimes you start off and you think, you know what, I wish I wasn't doing this. Somehow, I think, in order to get that kind of performance level at its best and work on it the way you want to, you've got to enjoy it. And it's very rare that I work on pieces that I just simply don't like. I performed, the last thing I did before I came out on this tour was I gave a British premiere of a fairly new Euphonium concerto by an English composer called Paul McGee. I don't know if any of the Euphonium players have movement to fairly modernistic, rather than contemporary, modernistic composition, about 22 minutes, it's an epic. And, you know, it's not everyone's cup of tea, but I really, really enjoyed working on it. And to work on it with once you've got the full band going, so the writing was fantastic. So, you know, at the moment, it's probably something like that. However, I played symphonic variants, James Madison symphonic variants, completely different type of piece, but wow, that's it. It's a great piece. It's a really enjoyable piece to play, especially with it. Last Saturday I had the US Army band behind me, and they are good. They are really good, and that was a real privilege to do. So, you know, I enjoyed playing that. So it kind of swaps and changes. Why do we enjoy pieces? Well, I like a challenge. And every piece, whether it's tomorrow night, I'm playing a Vaughan Williams song that on the paper, I've got the music and I'm looking at it on the paper, looks a double, but of course, musically it's a real challenge. You've got to kind of get into all those kind of things. So everything's got its challenges, and yeah, so that's the way I like to